So let's bring into the conversation an online safety campaigner, Ellen Room, who sadly lost her teenage son a number of years ago. Thank you for coming on. Can I call you Ellen? I don't want to be too forward. Okay, Ellen, no, thank you. You'll have been asked this so many times, and the pain will get no less raw each time you're asked. Obviously, I have to ask the consequences concerning your boy. Ellen.
So back in April 22, I came home to find Jools not breathing. We had an inquest and there was nothing ruled offline as to his mental health issues. There was no mental health issues. There was no sign of any bullying. And then I said, well, what happened online? And I was forbidden to see any details. As a parent, you have no legal right to see what your children look at online. So I started campaigning for something called Jools law, which is going through, and Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State, told me that will be passed. So when a child dies, their online data will be saved within 5 days so that no other parent is in my position.
Why is that important to you, Ellen?
Because there was nothing found offline. So what on earth happened to him? I don't believe a normal 14-year-old child that presents with no mental health issues suddenly decides, within an hour and a half of saying goodbye to his best friend, which is on our camera, to suddenly take his life. Something happened. And whether that be in his text messages, whether it be a blackout challenge, which I assumed it was initially, but we still haven't been able to get that data from TikTok. We are suing TikTok. None of the social media companies would give me his browsing data or his messages. If they had nothing to hide, why would they not hand it over and say, you know, here's his data, I hope you get some answers?
Can the police not demand powers of seizure, or even Ofcom demand powers of seizure?
Well, the law has changed since when Jools died. There's now the Data Use and Access Act, which, if the coroner asked for it, which is why I pushed so heavily to make it automatic, but the police and the coroner, well, it has to come via the coroner to Ofcom to preserve and request that data. The problem is I'm contacted weekly by parents of children that are dying saying this isn't happening, which is why I pushed for it to be automatic. And once that gets royal assent, it will be automatic that data is preserved. But we all know there is harmful data on these platforms. We just need to prove it. And then once we can prove what our children are saying, we can hold these companies properly accountable.
A young lad, 14, I imagine, like every other 14-year-old, he spent a lot of time on social media.
He did, yeah. And more so in lockdown because he was an only child. And I was perhaps a naive parent back in 2020 to not know the harms. Nowadays, we're all talking about it. But I still come across parents now that I try desperately to educate on things like Snapchat, live location. You've got children being followed by paedophiles and drug dealers knowing within a foot of where your children are. That can't be right to have children on these platforms. And we've got, you know, the government saying there's going to be this consultation. I really would urge MPs today to back for getting rid of it, to raise the age to 16. We have time and time again proved the harms on these platforms. The MPs just need to stand up and say enough, take it away. And if the social media companies can prove that their platforms are safe, hey, we can consider giving it back. But it's up to the technology companies now to remove it and get their platforms safe.
If a sliver of light can come out of the extraordinary gloom that's been visited upon you, your campaigning is going extraordinarily well. I understand you've been in contact with Prince Harry, is that right?
Yes, I've met him twice, actually, over in America. So I've been over to America twice to support the American bereaved families. This is a global problem. It's not just the UK. And I've taken my campaign international to prove that this is a bigger problem. We are all talking about the harms. Please, UK government, step up and do something about it, not just debate it for a bit longer.
I think you're probably aware it's Online Safety Day. It's the third Online Safety Day we've conducted here at LBC. And as part of that, I've been speaking with Dame Melanie Dawes, who, just to remind my listeners, she's Chief Executive or Head of Ofcom, and she's told me in an interview I conducted last week that actually we're ahead of almost every other country on the planet in our legislation and the fines that we levy. You're sadly very close to this. Would you concur with that?
No, I wouldn't.
What happens in the US, Ellen?
Well, in the US, yes, they can't get the data, and we are ahead of it with regards to preserving the data and being able to hold them accountable. That is fantastic. But in the US, you do have a lot of problems, the same as we are having, but they're still trying to push for the COSTA Act out there, so I guess we're ahead on some things, but it's not enough. We have still got children being harmed. I was phoned last week by the mother of a child who's 15-year-old who's just taken his life, and hearing the rawness in her voice, it took me back to the day that Jools died. And you have got children being harmed or dying, and it's still happening. And That's wrong. If we can switch it off, just switch it off, and the technology companies, you fix it. I think that's got to be the way forward. And, I take my hat off to Australia, the fact that they've stood up and done this. And it may not be perfect. You may get some children that fall through the net, but, the majority of children are being protective. And I wish we would do things a bit quicker here.
You're seeking for your son's inquest to be reheard. If that's correct, why?
Because I can then use the law. So I wrote to the Attorney General, or my barrister did, Harry Lambert, 13 weeks ago. They haven't responded yet. So we have to get the Attorney General to grant permission, and then we have to apply to the High Court. But then I can use the new Data Use and Access Act to demand social media companies release that data. I want to know why my 14-year-old child isn't alive. And whilst there's a law there that I could use to possibly get answers, then I want to try it. But I'm still waiting for the Attorney General to respond, and that's incredibly frustrating.
When did your letter go in?
13 weeks ago.
Well, I think LBC needs to make a call. We'll, if you have a brief word with my reporter, just get the details. We'll definitely put a call into the office. Lastly,
Amazing.
You've referenced this online challenge, and I've told you it's Online Safety Day, and an LBC investigation has found that the challenge is linked to the deaths of several British children is still on TikTok. It's, as you said, the Blackout Challenge. Our reporter, LBC's Thea Rickards, found videos like those still on social media. To you, Emma, campaigning in this field, almost 4 years on, how do you react to that it's still out there and it can still be sought?
I've sat in meetings with TikTok in Parliament before, and there's various challenges. We have told them time and time again it's still on their platform, and it just frustrates me that we've got children seeing things like this. I mean, we've got children seeing things like, live shootings. I don't want to see that as an adult. I don't want children to see it. People are seeing beheadings. I mean, what on earth are we doing allowing children on these platforms to see this sort of things? And the fact that they've got challenges on their platform, they know they've got challenges on their platform. Yes, they'll argue that it's not there, but they do. And actually, I wish they had a bit more moral grounding to say they need to step up and do more to protect the children on their platforms.
It's been a privilege to speak to you for all the wrong reasons, obviously. If I could ask you just to stay on the line, we're going to take a note of that and then we'll put a call into the Attorney General's office. Thank you to you, Ellen Room.